welcome to the Ultimate PT Podcast. My name is Nick with the Training Room. Welcome along. Today we are going to be talking about goals, and I'm joined by some very special guests. We have a guy called Daniel Ballard, professional footballer, and we have an ex-rugby professional as well called John Hart, who's also going to be joining us. Be myself, plus my other colleague Martin Hamer. Together we're going to be talking about goals, goal setting, and looking at the ideas of strength and conditioning within top sport. Hope you enjoy. Okay, welcome to our Ultimate PT Podcast. My name is Nick for the Training Room. Work with the tutors as a support team for the learners on the course. We've got some people joining us today. We've got Daniel, we've got John, and we've got Martin, who you recognise from previous podcasts. So welcome along all.
Welcome. How are we doing? All right.
Thank you.
Good. So we are talking today a little bit about goals, because we've got some great kind of experience on board with us today. So I kind of really want to hear more about that. But we're going to be touching on the subject of goals as well, and how you guys out there can set goals and kind of what they mean to you, and how we can kind of get there and stay on track with them really. But also we're going to look at these guys, our super top athletes that are joining us today, and how their kind of experience, especially within strength conditioning and performance, is kind of round off for their careers. So I'm going to get them to introduce themselves first of all. Always a bit that nobody likes, but we'll go for it anyway. So I'm going to start off, just because he's at the top of my screen, there is Daniel. So Daniel, start us off. Who are you?
Yeah, so my name is Daniel Ballard, and I play football for a living. I've played for Arsenal since the age of 7 or 8, and I'm currently on loan at Blackpool.
And that's hence the black eye.
Yeah, so this was a nasty one on the weekend. Yeah,
it's a nice one.
See that? There's a few stitches in there, so
yeah.
It's not as pretty as academy football playing in League One. So yeah, so it's tough, but no, I'm loving every minute. So it's a good learning curve. Yeah, definitely.
Good. And John, about yourself?
Yeah, I played professional rugby for over 10 years. Retired 7 years ago now. So just sort of at that side of, after playing professional sport, unfortunately picked up quite a few injuries along the way. So now my sort of training regime is how to keep myself sort of active, but also keeping those injuries intact, so they don't start affecting me now in civil life. So
yeah. So who are you playing for, John?
So yeah, I played for London Wasps for 10 years. Yeah.
Excellent. And Martin, what about you?
Yeah, so I've obviously been on a few of these before, and coming up to, I think, primary role, coming up to 7 years, health and fitness tutor with Training Room. But obviously, when I'm not teaching, I'm strength and conditioning coaching across various amounts of sports. So primarily team sports within rugby union and rugby league. And recently, over the last 12 months, started working with amateur strongmen as well, which is really, really interesting demographic to work with. Picked up some good experience with that, so hoping to make a bit of a name for myself in that field as well, other than my health and fitness tutoring. So yeah, it's a bit on me.
Excellent. So let's look then, at the minute, or in your playing careers, your goals. So I'm going to start with you, Daniel, on this. Have you got kind of any areas that you think, or have you been told that this is an area that you need to improve on?
Yeah, so I see there you mentioned goals a lot, and we've been forced to sort of set goals every year, especially at Arsenal, and they're very sort of focused around that. And at the time, it's something that seems a bit unrealistic, or a bit you're setting goals. You want to play this amount of games, you want to play for your national team, you want to do these, and it's amazing to look back at the end of a season and to sort of see what you've been able to achieve, and see why you've been able to achieve that, and maybe why you haven't being able to achieve some things. So, back at the start of last year or the year before, I wanted to make my appearance for the under-23s. I wanted to be called up to the Northern Ireland national team, and I made both of those goals throughout the year, and it was an amazing year. But then last year, I wanted to play 20 games in the league. I went on loan to Swindon, and within the first month I tore my meniscus, so that was me out for 5-6 months, and I actually didn't play one game of football last year because of the coronavirus and everything. So as I got back from injury, there was no games going on. So like, from having one year where I've set all the goals and I've smashed every single one of them, to the next year where it was I didn't hit any, and it was, so it's
do you find that tough? That must be quite tough, mentally challenging as well.
Yeah, I think, especially as like a young player, I feel like almost last year was a wasted year, which is unfortunate as it is, because you wanna progress progress faster than all your teammates, faster than the people around you. You want to have many games under your belt. You want to progress your career. So yeah, it was extremely difficult, but I'm kind of grateful in a way, because it's opened my eyes up to many different things, not just in football, in life. And I'd say I'm a more rounded person as a whole, and it's made me fall in love with education again, and it's made me build a more balanced life, which in return has helped my football massively.
Oh, that's good. Oh, yeah, that's good. John, you've had a few injuries along the way, haven't you?
Yeah, unfortunately, yeah.
Have you dealt with the same sort of thing?
Yeah, what Daniel was saying there, I think rings true within being in elite sport, because inevitably, usually you come in at a pretty young age and your body's pretty mobile and it's feeling pretty good, and you usually start off with a stretch of being able to achieve your goals, and it all flows nicely. And then as the toll of the intensity of the sport takes its toll on the body, then you start hitting little bumps in the road for those goals, like Daniel said, with injury. And so I always found that sort of being able to adjust those goals. So obviously at the start of the season you set out big goals to try and achieve, and then if you do pick up injuries, I think that's where you've got to be that flexibility of being able to change those goals, and sort of start looking, if you have an injury, well, what's the benefit of that? Obviously your body is getting rest, so that's beneficial, but then was there work-ons in the gym which when you're playing you can't achieve, but so utilizing that time to be able to achieve that. So I found with those injuries over time, it was sort of, when you're young you get the disappointment of not being able to achieve those big goals, but it's, you start to learn to adapt. Like Daniel said, he's found other things of interest which actually will probably benefit him in the long run through the game, and probably give him more a longer time within the sport, because he'll have other interests going around with it, so it's not just so intense on that one sport. You can get away from it. So but for him in that, I'd say that's probably a huge benefit that he can take away from it. But yeah, it was always trying to always adjusting the goals within the season, and I think and it's also setting your goals which also meet the team goals, which in team sport is always quite challenging, because obviously your goal might not quite, you've got to make sure it fits in to the bigger picture of what the team is trying to achieve.
Yeah. And Martin, you I know you often talk about on the strength conditioning courses thing. As a coach, your main kind of output is to prevent injury, or try and prevent injury and stuff. How do you find that would kind of toe into these guys and their kind of experience and such as a coach?
Yeah, so I mean, it'd be interesting to get a bit of feedback from the guys, because they'll know better at the top of the elite sport of what kind of support, what kind of service they get from the strength and conditioning. But as you mentioned, when I'm teaching the guys on the strength and conditioning course, keeping it really, really simple as an S&C, is you've got two main roles really. One is to improve the performance of not only the individual you're working with, but the team. And as John quite rightly said, that can be quite tricky for an S&C and the support team, because you've got individual goals you need to set people, improving your speed, agility, your strength, whatever it is. But then also matching that with the overall outcomes of the team. But with that, you've obviously got to prevent injury. So your two are improve performance and prevent injury. So just, I'll fire it to Daniel first. Kind of the question really is, when you were sort of injured and you'd gone through your season and your meniscus, because obviously that's quite a serious injury, and with that, and quite a common one with your ACLs in football, what sort of support were you given from the S&C staff with the or the physio staff at the time? What sort of was your recovery protocols? How did they keep you focused on your long-term goal of getting back playing? What sort of things were they doing for you?
Yeah, so obviously I was extremely fortunate that where I was playing, obviously at Arsenal, and they have, amazing facilities, which, when you come on loan, you find out that other teams just don't have that financial backing. So at Arsenal particularly, I had, some of the best S&C coaches with all of the equipment available, and sort of, as John said, it gives you that time to work on things which you wouldn't really have the opportunity to work on while you're playing. So, like for instance, now I'm thrown back into sort of playing every week, and a lot of it's twice a week due to the virus. Trying to get good strength and conditioning work done, and good sort of injury prevention work is hard, because you're playing 90 minutes on the Saturday and 90 minutes on the Tuesday, so you're almost playing a game, breaking down your body, you're recovering just in time for the game, and then you're doing it again, and it's sort of that cycle. Whereas back at Arsenal, you'd have the time in between games to lift weights, to strengthen the tendons, to do the stuff to help prevent injuries. And at this period I'm at right now, where it's so intense and I'm playing so many games, because your body's already tired, it's hard to get that strength work done. So it's trying to find that balance, because otherwise, our body will start breaking down. I've had a few little niggles, so yeah, it's the difference between the amount of games you have, the facilities, the knowledge of your coaches. There's like so many factors which go into it.
I think with the strongman, obviously the example I was giving you, with the S&C role, it is very, very different in terms of team and individual sports. So you guys, with John and yourself, playing the rugby week in, week out, you have to peak every single week. So you've got to peak at every single game, which, as you said, is massively undulating and massively stressful on the body. Whereas if I'm working with someone in an individual team sport like strongman, we have that one specific day where they need to peak for. So actually, in terms of the planning, the periodizing, the recovery, is that little bit easier and not as complex. But just finally on that then, Dan, obviously you've had a good sort of experience at different levels. So obviously you played Arsenal, which is your top elite level, and then you're down at your Swindons and your Blackpools at League One. If you could just pick one thing, what's the difference between the S&C, the strength and conditioning you get at Arsenal compared to what you get at Blackpool? What would you say the major differences between those levels?
I think first of all, the facilities is massive, and I know it will vary from club to club, but like the situation I'm in now, it sort of links in with the coronavirus. I've been doing all my gym at an actual gym, like Blackpool don't own it, and obviously they've all shut down because of the lockdown. So for a good month there was no equipment, no weights to lift, nothing to sort of use to maintain. They've now got like a squat rack and some weights, so we can start to do it again. But yeah, I think mainly the facilities and the amount of games that you have to play is the two biggest factors. I think the actual coaches themselves, from my experience, they've been very good at Blackpool, but I think they are very limited with one, the facilities, and two, the amount of games we have to play. So it's hard for them to say, go and lift some weights the day after a game, because that's the only opportunity you get.
Yeah.
And a lot of players are like, you can't
just don't want to do it. Yeah.
You can't even walk the next day. Yeah, you don't want to be lifting big heavy weights. So yeah, I think they're the two main differences.
And then I suppose similar question to you really, John, is obviously it's quite a broad question, but what was your experience of like at S&C over the time you was at Wasps really? So in terms of the structure, the frequency they were doing, how involved was the S&C, all those kind of things really?
Yeah, so when I joined Wasps, although the game had been professional for a while then, the S&C side of it was very unprofessional. So when I first came to the club, everyone was doing a generic weights program, regardless whether you were a forward or a back. And to be honest, the first season I came into the first team, there was a huge amount of injuries through the first team. The team wasn't doing particularly well. We're low down the league. And then Warren Gatlin came in into the club, the new coach, and he revolutionised the club game as a whole. So he was we were the first club that he brought in proper S&C coaches, and that was quite a fascinating experience to be around. So from a day of doing generic programs, suddenly we had 4 S&C guys there that were breaking down the programs to forwards, backs, but then breaking the forwards programs to if you're a prop or a back row, and then the backs if you're a winger to a centre. And it just, it made the reason why Wasps was so successful during those early periods in the 20s was because of the S&C side. We were light years ahead of other teams. I was saying before, when we used to walk on the pitch, and after 15 minutes, you just knew we were going to blow this team apart. They're already on their knees, gasping for air, and we were sort of, hadn't even hit full strides. So it's just, and then obviously on top of that was the rehab that came in when you were injured, and that side of things was, was pretty amazing. It was all timetabled, which is just general practice now through elite sport with, designated times for, them to fully focus on what your injury is, the rehab to get you back. And, the club, pumped a lot of money into it. They were trying to protect their assets. And, you probably actually come back from injury in better nick than you were when you got injured, which was great. But it was fascinating just to see that, and then see all the other teams gradually catch us up. And now within rugby, there's very fine margins between each team, and hence probably why the sport obviously at the moment is going through a bit of an issue with the trauma that each players are experiencing, because they are super fit athletes now and they're running into each other at pretty high speeds, and obviously that's having a different kind of effect now.
Yeah, I mean, you could just, it's just a simple thing. You just look at the aesthetics of the players nowadays compared to 10, 15 years ago. You can just see that the bigger, more robust, more explosive athletes, can't you?
Oh yeah, and the days that have gone where you could, run around a prop, they're just as quick over 10 metres as anyone else in the team now. So
absolutely.
It does make some interesting things.
Yeah, and I think a great thing obviously for Ireland in the training room is you've mentioned it there, how S&C has developed. You could see how it's developed over the time at Wasps, and I chat to a couple of the guys at Coventry in the Championship, and even they've got a pretty good structured S&C plan. The S&C is involved in the warm-up on the days, involved in the cool-downs on the day. So even within rugby union, even coming into the Championship levels now, you just see people with Saracens, etc. You're just seeing some of these lads. Even at Championship level, the S&C has just gone up tempo.
I think another environment which I hadn't appreciated is just the S&C level at some of at school level now, and just at the youngsters. After I retired from rugby, I went into teaching for a bit, and where I was teaching, the conditioning the kids got there to give them a chance to then maybe go professional was just
Yeah.
I was blown away by it.
Well, some of these sort of grammar schools, etc., private schools have full-time S&Cs, don't they?
Yeah, no, yeah, it's great. It's it's good, but it's also it's a bit of get your head around it,
Yeah. When I was at school, it was just a couple of cones and a few benches to hop over.
Exactly, same here. It's like,
we were lucky we had a rope.
No, you got a rope, yeah.
Yeah, we had a
Because
rope.
you're down south, right? You don't get that in Manchester.
But yeah, it's good. Sorry.
Go on, John.
No, I was just saying, it's just I think you can see it throughout all sports now, just how important S&C is. And I think obviously that's because people do it predominantly more now for a living. So
yeah,
they're trying to protect themselves. And
Did you find kind of at Wasps that when the S&C came in, you mentioned before that you were getting a lot of injuries beforehand.
Yeah.
Did you find that the injuries reduced within the team, which meant you were able to play more of the sort of first team players more consistently, which helped with?
No, definitely. No, it definitely helped, and it was that I think it was a shock to the system for a lot of people, and to understand what a professional athlete really is. I think rugby, obviously, from the amateur days, everyone has an image of rugby, and it's probably still there a bit of things, kind of drinking and all this kind of stuff. But now it's this hugely, and it's because it's got so competitive now. But through that time, we went through seasons where we were pretty lucky with that, with pretty limited injuries, and that was down to, as players, we were fitter, stronger, so we weren't getting.
And did all the guys embrace it when it all came in as sort of a new thing?
I think first of all it was a shock to the system, and that being pushed that hard, and I think probably people were worried that they would get injured because they were being pushed so hard, and it became more commonplace, and as players you started getting a better understanding of, because the S&C people were very open about what they were doing, and the recovery periods we would have to recover from what they were doing. The players really started getting a real good grasp of it and understanding, and was actually it got to the point where I think, from my experience, what a good S&C is the trust that the player puts in them, and then is prepared for them to push them as hard as they can, because they trust them that they've got it all built in with the recovery and rehab, and then how hard they're going to push them to be able to get those gains. And from the success we had, obviously that kind of trust was there.
I think, like, as the S&C, you are within that team environment, both for yourselves really, and it is for the, like John mentioned, for the players to have that trust in you and believe in what you're implementing. Ultimately, it's a results-based business. So if the team's performing better, players are performing better, they're winning, they're hitting these outcomes, the trust has got to be in the whole team, hasn't it? The support staff, the players, the managers, the coaches. It's a result.
Yeah, I think
results business. You're winning, aren't
you?
Yeah, I think with that element of trust, I think what I've seen a lot, maybe seeing a lot with the with the foreign players coming across, and sort of the way they train. I think some countries are still very behind how we've sort of developed, and I think if you ask a foreign player 5-6 years ago to go in the gym and start lifting weights the same way that maybe we was doing over here, they'd think you're crazy. They wouldn't they couldn't see maybe that benefit, and they're maybe a bit scared of like going in and lifting these big heavy weights, which it can be. You see people's legs in football now, and they're lifting hundreds of kgs, and your first thought is, that's going to get me injured, or that's going to I don't want to do that. I don't want to be involved in that. I just want to stay well clear from that and focus on my football. But I think when you find out that it's the injury like prevention and everything that it can do to benefit you and getting that trust, then it's amazing.
Yeah, and that always comes back down to the education as well, doesn't it? Because you have the same mindset. I've heard people before saying, especially I don't want to get the bigger legs because it'll slow me down. You know, straight away it kind of contradicts itself a little, doesn't it? You've got bigger legs, more power, more strength, more push, more acceleration. So you look at cyclists and things like that. They got some size on them, haven't they?
And it's just like it's just that education side of things, isn't it? That's what it is, and I suppose that's the idea for us at the training room, because we're talking about S&C very much at the top level. So we're talking you higher in the semi-professional, talking you elite. But the idea of our courses is to roll this education out of S&C, so they can, a lot of training room students now can start to go and work in grassroots at whatever sport that is. So they can start to go and work with the rugby tots down the road at the rugby union club, or they can start to go and work at the local squash club or local tennis club, and really try and incorporate S&C at a grassroots level as well, rather than just seeing S&C as what should be elitist, and get it much more within that grassroots.
Yeah. I think it's just interesting listening to John, who's just recently finished his career, and just like the timings of everything, and he was, within that first team environment, and then the S&C was just being implemented, and it was around when I was sort of 13, 14 when we started to get our first
just to make you feel old.
And it was interesting then coming in, and we was learning all the Olympic lifts and stuff at the age of like 14, 15, and then I go back to like the youth academies and look at the under 10s and under 11s, and they're doing that at that age now, and they're getting all these movement patterns and mobility. And so like
that was going to bring me on to a question that actually you just sort of mentioned the Olympic lifts there. That's something I incorporate quite heavily on the course. One, because I'm quite biased towards Olympic lifting, to be honest. I know the benefits of it. I just know the disadvantages of it. But how did you find going through them? How did you find the coaching of it? Was it something the coaches found difficult to implement? Or, how did they go about incorporating Olympic lifts?
At like, I think we was 15, 16 years old, we was doing a lot of technique work. So we wouldn't pick up a bar or put any weight on anything for a very long time, and I think it was even a good 2 years of getting the techniques of just using like the sticks, of getting the mobility, being able to squat right, being able to do the technique before putting any weight. And then as soon as you sort of get a scholar and go full time, that's when it seriously sort of, when you start to sort of push the weight, and I was very fortunate to have great S&C coaches who really sort of pushed that, and again, like yourself, really like the Olympic lifts, and at Arsenal they really see the value of building a powerful sort of robust player, and they're very very good, and I've been very lucky to be able to sort of be around that. And
because I suppose once you get to that age, you were saying you're 16, 17 and it kind of ramps up a bit. I suppose they need to expect you to be able to perform the lift, because at that level, they won't have the time to spend 4, 5, 6 hours a week with you breaking the technique down. You'll need to get in, you'll need to get into the gym, you'll need to shift the weights, then you need to get out into the field. Is that kind of how it was?
Yeah, so our power, or when we do our Olympic lifts, would be before training.
Yeah.
So there'd usually be like a 45-minute gap. Go in, do all your mobility and your movements, go lift your weights, get out on the grass, then back in, and then you do your proper gym strength session, maybe in the afternoon or whatever.
Cool. And I can't imagine, John, it was something that was touched on highly with you, the Olympic lifts, was it?
Yeah, we used to do quite a few of those. But then I'd have my shoulder reconstructed twice, so then I started struggling to actually be able to get the range to do quite a bit of that. So again, the S&C being able to adjust to what players could do and couldn't. Just, I think, obviously, in the rugby environment, with the injuries you can pick up with shoulders and things like that, it was quite interesting seeing how how they had to work to be able to, for players still to get the benefit of those kind of exercises, but not being able to fully be able to perform them due to injuries which have prevented the range of movement.
Definitely. And I think that is one of the great things, obviously, about the Olympics. It doesn't mean you have to just be able to perform the full movement. There are a lot of variations you can do with them, such as your power cleans, your power snatches, snatch back. There's loads of different variations. There's quite a lot of interesting research done by Dan Baker, actually, who, although I'm really kind of sort of biased towards Olympic lifting, actually just doing things such as loaded jumps, hex bar jumps, barbell jumps, have been shown to just be as effective for rate of force development as Olympic lifting. Now, when you're coaching an athlete, it's much easier to get them to do a loaded squat jump than it is to teach them a snatch. So again, it's just finding out the S&C and think, right, it's probably going to be more time efficient for me to teach you this loaded jump and still get the same benefit as it is to take you through a full snatch workout.
For you guys, the kind of S&C structure and things like that, and even linking back to your goals and stuff like that, because I know we've got to still kind of keep those in mind as well a little bit. So even kind of thinking about those, you know, and I know we talk about on the course, and a lot of people that come through from the course, S&C coaches, are thinking about the training, what can we do with them, what can we do with them, what can we do with them. But how important is it also to schedule that downtime, that relaxation? You know, I've heard a lot of the rugby union players at the moment, especially with the first wave of COVID, that they reckon it's actually added probably an extra couple of years onto their lifespan because they've had so much recovery time within that first section when games are called off. So for you guys, how important is that, either on physical and also mental side? Daniel, let's start with you.
Yeah, I think this is like something massive that I've been working on in the last few years, especially. I've done a lot of work with, again, we had like a psychologist at Arsenal, and I was trying to find that balance, and she really wanted me to keep pushing with my education, and I done my A-level maths in those few years, and then I've done a diploma in financial trading, and I've obviously started this course now to learn to become a PT during the lockdown. And I think having that focus away from football has been, you know, something that has been so important, and especially during, you know, the tougher times and the times where it can be extremely stressful and maybe you don't feel like you're progressing the way you are, or you've had a bad game. Getting lost in something that you enjoy doing and is hard work, and having that other focus, you can switch off from football and focus on that, is massive. And I think it's helped my football massively. And, you know, I'll always try to keep, you know, doing something to keep me busy now. Especially, you know, the higher you go, the more stressful it can become. I'd imagine John will probably tell you. So yeah, I think it's very, that's something that I strongly believe in, and that I'd like to keep doing as long as I'm playing.
Yeah. By yourself, John.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think this is an area where I think, you know, in elite sport or any way of life, you know, you're very focused on achieving something that you really want to achieve, but sometimes people see, you know, if you have downtime or recovery, you know, you're losing the focus. But actually, that's probably the most important thing if you want to achieve what you want to achieve, is to be able to have those moments of switching off, because we all have things that we love, but if we do it 24/7, it becomes a chore, it doesn't become a love. And I think having that time, just be able to switch off, you know, and, you know, that's, you know, even if it's just to sit down and watch a movie for an hour and a half, just be able to switch off. Or, you know, with the S&C side, you know, we used to do this big training camp in pre-season. So we go to a place called Ballard in Poland, which is in the middle of nowhere, but they've got all these cryo chambers and all this stuff, and it was brutal. It's probably one of the hardest things I've ever had to do, and I think I ended up going 16 times with the amount of pre-seasons, and often, but we would get back and they'd be like, right, you've got 8 days off, just don't think about rugby, obviously look after yourself, but the benefits, all the adaptations you're going to get from what we've done, when you come back, you feel like $1 million, and you would come back. But that was purely because you had that time to recover, time off, go and think about other things, do other things. And then when you come back, inevitably you come back more focused, more determined, you hit your goals, whether that's in the gym or on the field, because you feel fresh. So I think, it's so important, that recovery, to freshen up, whether you do it through studying or, other things. I think within elite sport, definitely being able to switch off on the game, which, you love and you want to do your best in. If you don't have a chance to switch off, I think inevitably you end up probably not doing your best, because it starts becoming a chore, not a love.
And I think that works hand on hand just with your sort of your general Joes, that are just going to the gym and things like that. It's the same. I think it's the same thing. It happens January. This one's a little bit different because gyms aren't open. But people going, right, I'm going to get fit. This is my goal. I'm going to, lose 1,500 kilograms in a week, whatever it is. Set themselves unrealistic targets. They smash the gym 7 days a week because they think that's the way to do it. Gradually, they just get knackered, peters out, and then by February, they're not going anymore. So I think it's still key to have that downtime, not be too hard on yourselves as you're kind of doing it as well, and just be realistic with what it is you're looking to achieve. And if you need that week off, take that week off. It's probably going to, like you say, help you afterwards.
No, definitely.
It's like when you're looking at it, it's like when you say you do extremes of anything, you're never really going to get a result out of it.
Yeah.
So, you put something really simply, like your insanity definition, doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. That can easily be related to your sport, doing the same thing over and over, week after week, playing day after, and expecting things to just get better. It doesn't quite work like that. So as a lot of sports, you're talking undulating, there's going to be elements of hard performance work, but there's got to be elements of recovery in there.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool, good stuff. Guys, I think we're pretty much there. I've enjoyed that. I didn't have to do a lot, which was brilliant. Just listen to you guys. You guys have been brilliant. Fantastic guests on for our podcast. I really enjoyed that. Martin, have you got anything you wanted to chuck in finally?
Obviously just great to chat to you, and it's really interesting for me just to find out the differences. One, to see how S&C's developed for you guys, and as Dan quite rightly highlighted, you kind of get an S&C at different levels. Obviously, Johnny's finished his career, and Dan who's just beginning and well into his career. So it's nice to see the differences between the S&C, the structure you get, and how it's benefited you guys at the minute.
Absolutely. Cool. Well, thank you very much, Daniel. Thank you very much for joining us, especially on your relaxation time. I know you enjoy that bit. So.
Indeed.
John, thank you very much. Been an absolute pleasure. So thank you very much, and I hope we can do another one again.
Chris,
Thank you very much.
Cheers then, guys.
Cheers, guys.
Thank you.
Nice.
That concludes the end of our Ultimate PT podcast. Thank you very much for joining. I hope you enjoyed it. Personally, I found that a fantastic chat with those guys. Learned a lot, and to be honest, I want to know more. So hopefully we can get them back. Check out some more of our podcasts. Have a fantastic rest of your day, and we'll see you again soon.